welcome to Crawlspace. Lance, tonight what we have is a really kind of fun interview with two cool guys. They do the True Crime Garage podcast, and we have a real kind of honest chat with them about the business of podcasting, about the Maura Murray case, about a lot of stuff.
How are you tonight, Tim?
Sorry, I tend to talk a lot right at the beginning there. I'm doing fine. How are you?
You come in hot, and that's much appreciated. But I was genuinely asking if you were how you were. So it's good to know. I didn't realize that I had a podcast crush on the True Crime Garage guys until we started talking to them and realized how we're similar, how we differ, their work ethic, where they're at right now. And by the time we were maybe, 20 minutes into the interview, it wasn't even an interview. By the time we were maybe 20 minutes into the conversation, we had a good rapport. We had a good banter, and can't wait to get together with those guys again sometime soon. They know a lot of shit.
Yeah, they do. Very informative show, real good show. Two fun guys, interesting personalities, and the chat is just fantastic. At one point during this conversation, we talk about CrimeCon 2018. And we talk about maybe doing some kind of live show in Nashville or affiliated with CrimeCon at some point that weekend in May. So I'm only putting it out there in the intro just in case some people hear it and want to help try to make those push those wheels into motion.
I think the people who are going to push those wheels into motion are sitting right here, and they are also in Ohio. And it seemed like when we mentioned it, it was a good idea overall. Hey, we're in Nashville. We're in a hotel. They have this amazing concept of their beer of the night. Let's incorporate that. Let's do a late night show. Let's have as many people who want to attend this. We'll get a little conference area, a little conference room. We'll book it out, and we can just have a good time talking about true crime, anything, beer, wine, whatever. But
it'll be fun.
It'll be fun. Yeah, it'll be like they said. And this was I think this is when my crush started happening, was when they said that they don't consider their listeners just listeners. They don't consider them downloads. They actually consider them buddies. They consider them friends. Like, you put those earbuds in and you're talking to your friends. And that was something that I related to, because when we first started doing the Maura Murray podcast, I remember my friends telling me, it's just like those times when you would talk about Maura's case and we'd be sitting around the campfire, because we would go camping, and inevitably you'd just start talking about stories. And it reminded them of that. It reminded them of the time that you'd have some beers and you'd start talking about stuff. And so it's like you do have these, like, they're friends out there. So all friends join in on the CrimeCon 2018 Nashville event, and
yes,
we will have a late night live podcast for you.
And check out True Crime Garage if you haven't already. It's a great podcast where they cover different cases. It's a pretty great show. And this podcast is taking 2 weeks off, but we will be back after that with more episodes on the cases that we're covering. We are planning many more Brianna Maitland episodes. We have a new Dean murder episode that's in the pipeline. Same for the Vanishing Men of Boston.
And I just want to ask you, Tim, I know you're from this, the greater Boston area. Have you ever been to Davis Square in Somerville? Have you ever thought of a reason to go to Davis Square in Somerville?
I grew up about a mile away from Davis Square in Somerville. So yeah, I've been there many times.
What's one of your favorite places down there?
Well, I used to like a place called the Jimmy Tingle Theater, but it has since been renamed and renovated, and now it's called the Rockwell Theater. And actually, Lance, funny that you mention it, because you and I and Jordan Bonaparte from the Nighttime podcast are doing a live podcast at the Rockwell Theater in Davis Square, Somerville on August 18th at 10 p.m.
This is incredible. I remember hanging out. People, I don't know if you can actually Google the information on this, but once upon a time, Tim, you wrote this. It was the Dances with Wolves of live theater. Something very historical. The title was Pilgrim, and we performed this and produced it at Jimmy Tingle's Theater, which was renamed to the Davis Square Theater, which was then renamed the Rockwell. new ownership. There's this cool little speakeasy-ish type bar connected to it, same ownership, called Saloon. Yeah, this is a cool little spot right outside of Boston, and something very close to our hearts as far as historical, context is concerned.
We performed Pilgrim back in 2003 and 2004, and we also did a sketch comedy night over there as well. And we had a lot of fun, have a lot of great memories from that theater. So come on down and share the night with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. We are going to have some drinks at the Saloon beforehand. Sometime between 7:30 and 9, we will be over there. Actually, most of that time, we will be over there hanging out with you. If you want to come talk to us, ask us about Brianna Maitland case, ask us about the Maura Murray case, or just shoot the shit. We are not going to be talking about the Maura Murray case during the show. What we will be talking about is a cacophony of things. We have some really interesting guests. We have the co-founder from the Satanic Temple, Lucien Greaves, on, who's recently been on the Tucker Carlson show, where Tucker really tried to make a fool out of him, and it didn't really work. This guy is very intelligent, and so when you hear the Satanic Temple, I don't want you to think that we're going to be pushing a religion on you or anything like that. The Satanic Temple is a lot closer to a political organization than it is to some kind of satanic cult where there are human sacrifices and things like that. That's not at all what they do.
Whoa, wait. I thought we were actually going to have this ritual at the Rockwell at 10 p.m. on August 18th. I thought we were actually going to be doing this.
Don't tell them. The 13th person who walks in is going to be sacrificed on stage at midnight.
I will make sure that I am the 12th person.
We're just kidding. Come down and see the show. It's going to be amazing. You're going to have a lot of fun. You'll meet Jordan from the Nighttime Podcast. Chloe is going to be there. We're also going to have Elise from the Cryptid Antiquarian blog, who covers the Vanishing Men of Boston, hang out with us and talk to us for about 15, 20 minutes about that case and how crazy that is, and about the local area and everything like that. We also have one more quick little surprise story that we're going to throw at you that's probably something you've never heard of, but it is absolutely fascinating.
And then we're all going to talk about it. And you can ask your questions, and you can get answers from the panel, which I guess I'm just kind of calling the panel right now, which is myself, Tim, Jordan, Lucien, Elise. And don't be scared by the guests. You should be more scared by the public transportation that you'll be taking. Just kidding. Do not be scared by anything when you're coming to the live show. Speaking of public transportation, the theater is within a 2-minute, if you're walking slow, walk to the Red Line in Davis Square, Somerville. So if you're driving down in, park your car at Alewife, ALEWIFE, Alewife Station. Park your car real cheap. Take the Red Line 2 or 3 stops to Davis Square. Pop out, take a left, and head to the Rockwell. And it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time, and we're going to jam it with everything we can, and we're probably going to go until they kick us out.
Okay, so follow this show on Twitter at CrawlspacePod. Thank you very much for listening, and buy tickets to the live show in the show notes. Thank you very much. Welcome to Crawlspace True Crime Garage. We're here with Captain and Nick, the hosts of the popular true crime podcast, True Crime Garage. What's going on, guys?
Captain and Tennille. We like to be called Captain and Tennille.
Captain and Tennille. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
I'm just going to fangirl the whole time.
Perfect.
Who are you? Yeah, who are you directing the fangirl at?
Both of you guys. I listen to every Missing Maura Murray. Oh, now I can't talk. Oh, my God. We had this problem earlier.
You're going to hear about that.
Yeah, I couldn't say any words. But I listened to your podcast for every episode.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. Very cool. We're fans of yours as well. We listen to yours. It's very informative. Love the flow you guys have. and the music. Tell us something about that, because I want to first talk about what you guys do and what you do for a living or on the side. I'm not sure what is more prominent in your lives right now. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Okay, so it used to be that we both worked a lot and on other jobs, and we would podcast when we could. And, you know, because the show's grown and it's taken on a life of its own, we've bumped it up to 2 episodes a week. We've been very lucky and fortunate that we have people that want to advertise and sponsor the show, which goes a long way. So we've been able to really scale back on working at our other jobs and focus more on the podcasting, which has helped out quite a bit for the podcasting, because as you guys know, it not only does it take on a life of its own at some point, but it becomes this big monster thing that you have to deal with kind of every day, and you have to work on it every day. And now we've been able to free up some of our time to just focus on True Crime Garage.
What did you guys do for a living before you started this?
Well, I used to play in bands, mainly party bands, and I'd play on records. And then I did a little bit of producing records. But now, I mean, I still do all my stuff on the side. I'll play pickup gigs here and there. I don't tour like I used to, but I'll do music for film and commercials, and I edit audio for film as well.
Very cool.
And then that comes up often on the show, but I've had several jobs, but I've primarily been in property management for the last 14 years. So something that we, you know, it's not nothing we hide on the show. It's something that we talk about. And once in a while, we might be discussing a topic or a case where some of that expertise comes in, even though, you know, it's not detective work. It's, you know, a guy like the captain who's traveled all over playing gigs. He can tell you certain things about certain areas or certain things about travel or meeting new people, because he spent years meeting new people weekend after weekend. Where with me, it's, you know, if you want to talk about a large building or you want to talk about an area, about something, I can throw in a little bit of insight to that.
Now we'll get back to the large buildings, because I do actually want to talk to you about large buildings and whether or not you can penetrate foundations with X-rays to look for human skeletons. But I want to bring up, because we're on the topic of your day job and your podcasting job, and there's a balance there, and then soon that balance is going to tip, or maybe not soon, but inevitably it's going to tip. And there's a really good book called Originals. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's by Adam Grant, and he talks about pioneers and innovators in certain industries and how they managed to balance right up until they were like, okay, this is it. And do you feel like that moment's coming very soon, and it's really hard to pinpoint?
We're past that moment.
So you had that one. Did you identify that moment, and you said at the time, or can you identify it now, like looking back going, oh, that was that moment?
I don't know if Nick would agree with me, but that moment happened way before Nick was comfortable with taking the leap. So for me, it was just at some point I was like, look, I'll put this on my shoulders. You still got to do the research and do your part, but all the other stuff, I'll just put it on my shoulders for a while till you can, you know, jump over full time.
It seems like the partnership between the two of you is very symmetric. You had a job that was you were in bands, so it wasn't, you know, you didn't have anything you were tied to from 9 to 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And Nick, you get into a situation, or you get into a certain rhythm in your life. You know, the paychecks come in, you pay your bills, and it's very frightening to say, this is a brand new industry, and I don't know, like, is this good for me to quit right now and get into a brand new industry? What was that like? Were you terrified?
I wasn't terrified, but I think what the true difference is for the captain. His thing is really in demand, and and I think that it's easy to go, you know, he's done this for a long time, and he's networked and played with a lot of different people. He has the ability to step away from something and then make a few phone calls and probably be right back in the game within a week or two. My area of property management is pretty. It's a bit unique, and usually it can take anywhere from about 6 months to a year and a half to land the right spot and find yourself in the right place. So for me to take a leap, it's kind of going, you know what? If this blows up in my face in 48 hours, well, I got to be prepared for the next 18 months to roll with the punches and get through this.
Right.
We've always been different that way because, I mean, we've known each other forever, but we've always been kind of just different in that sense where it's like I normally haven't worked a 9 to 5. So it was easy. It's easier for me to say, hey,
Yeah,
jump on in. You know?
definitely.
Don't worry. It'll be fine eventually. You know?
Right. And it kind of, you're not wrong though, because you're actually saying it's working. You know, you just said you've never had a 9 to 5, and hey, you know, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, I believe in a lot of stuff. I believe that if you put yourself out there, and I believe if you can think something and have the balls to say it, and I think you can wish something into existence. You can put it out there and go, look, we're going to be one of the best true crime shows on the planet, period. But you have to have the balls to say that. And most people would be like, wow, you're crazy. You're a narcissist or you're whatever. It's like, but no, it's like a lot of our lives are based off of we live in fear. We don't do things because of fear.
I like this. We're taking a spiritual twist this early. This is great.
And it's amazing. Tim and I just had a
This
pretty...
is rum, by the way. I'm drinking.
Perfect. Cheers. I'm drinking a beer here.
Cheers.
Tim and I just had a pretty cool conversation in one of the newest episodes where, and I love talking about that, the whole fear concept, and it's fear of failure and it's fear of success. I feel like fear is such a powerful emotion. Whereas like if you can make somebody laugh, that's not so much like you have a character trait of having a good sense of humor, right? Whereas fear is you can actually be afraid of success. And I feel like people are more afraid of success than they are of failure.
Well, I went through a weird time, and to say that I didn't ever have a 9 to 5, I mean, I've had normal jobs. I was married. I was raising 2 kids that weren't mine. That all went away. The contact went away. I moved back to Columbus. I was literally going crazy in a garage, and before we started the show, and I wasn't working pretty much at all. We started the podcast a little bit, but we were getting some hate mail when we first started. And when I actually jumped into when I started listening to you guys' show all the time, I'd go and read the comments, and I go, why is this rated 3 stars or whatever it was rated at the time?
Yep. Still is 3.5.
Because I was 3.5. It's like, if you don't like the show, turn it off. Nobody's forcing you to listen, and why would you go out of your way to make bad remarks? You know, it's easier for people to go out of their way and make bad remarks than it is to make good remarks. Anyways, I watched a show called The End of Tour, and it's about David Foster Wallace, and David Lipsky comes to interview him, and he's the most famous writer at the time. It's 1996. And he talks about, as you get famous, as you become successful, that your fear always is that you're going to be found out, that you're some kind of fraud. And I think, so it's not just a fear of success. I think it's more a fear that people are going to find out you're not that special or you're not that much different than them. And I think that's what's interesting about podcasts is you don't have to be different. We don't have to be different. We don't have to be special. They're more of our friends than they are our listeners.
Right.
Even though we don't know each other, when they pop in, when they put their earbuds in their ears and listen to us, if they like our show, we become their friends.
Well, and we try to do it like it's some kind of community. Like it's we don't want to feel like somebody that we're just a black wall that, you're staring off into space and you're thinking about what we look like or who we are or anything like that. No, we truly want to be friends with the people that tune in. Truly, we just can't meet all of them or see all of them. But that's so we try to talk about it like our garage is sitting in the middle of a city called Parts Unknown, America, and everybody's welcome to live there. The taxes are cheap. The schools are kind of bad. We're working on that.
Bad schools.
But we try to make it feel like a community. We want this is the bus stop that we want you to look forward to that stop.
Right.
Awesome.
Well, and for example, when I'd listen to you guys, I would be talking to my friend Aurelia, and I'd say, "Oh yeah, so Tim and Lance were saying," and Tim and Lance said, and then Tim said this, as if we're friends. I never met you till CrimeCon, so that's just kind of how podcasts work.
It is. I totally agree. It's really amazing, an amazing relationship and connection when you put the earbuds in. It's a very personal relationship, and I think that's probably why I'm not a suit. But I think that's why the suits realized that if we talk in our own voices while doing sponsorships, then people buy the products.
What are you looking at? What are you looking at through your window?
I wanted to see if the chickens had gone back into their chicken coop.
They've come home to roost.
They have.
Oh, okay.
The chickens have come home to roost. Once we're off here, I got to go shut the door, make sure no foxes or anything get to them.
Okay, so you guys came up with this idea for a podcast to include the audience. I love it. Why true crime? Why True Crime Garage? And is that a garage that we're looking at?
It's technically above a garage.
Okay.
Yes.
So why
The actual garage that we started in,
We were once in a garage.
it was so hot.
There was no air conditioning.
And we'd be dripping on the computers, and it was
And the
gross.
other thing too would be it would be well. First of all, we weren't very serious about it in the beginning. We were really truly two guys drinking beer in a garage having fun.
Mm-hmm.
We recorded a few episodes before we even thought we really just recorded them just to see if we would sit down and do it. No intention of releasing them. And but we would sit there and record with not as great of equipment as we have now, and we'd be halfway through an episode and
it was
somebody
pretty good equipment.
Somebody would let their dogs out, and we would have to break for 5 or 10 minutes because there's just dogs yapping, or
It was his dogs.
Somebody's
His dogs were yapping.
or a site, an ambulance would drive by, or a fire truck, or it just got to be.
And it was so hot.
It was very hot.
But we'd actually, when we first started, Nick would get up and walk around the room. He'd go get a beer, and I'd be going, "You got to talk into the mic." And he's like, it's fine. And he'd be he'd go lay on his hot tub and talk.
And kind of shout at the mic, and
I'm like, this is no good.
But I would get involved in the conversation with him and kind of forget that we were recording.
Yeah. Well, he would also get really drunk the first few episodes.
He would lay on his hot tub?
Yeah, he had a hot tub in his garage.
Yeah.
He's a baller.
Baller.
He's been a baller.
So you guys drink beer. You make it a point to talk about what beer you're drinking every episode. What are you drinking tonight, and where did this idea come from? And you get free beer from this. I take it. No,
we do have a beer fund, so people donate to the beer
nice.
fund. And we started that just as a joke. Let's see what happens, and it's nice because it pays for certain things. I mean, it pays for the beer, but it also helps pay for hosting and all the other little expenses that go along with it.
Sure, podcasting's not cheap.
Yeah.
Some people do a Patreon. We do the beer fund, and it's like we said, it's a little more community involvement there. The thing is with the beer, it's kind of an accident. When we first started recording, we would just drink beer, and it just happened to be he'd come over, and because he had to make the long drive, I'm like, I should buy some nice beer so that he's got something cool to drink while he's here. Have a couple of these. And it was so hot in the garage too. You need something cold to drink. So, he'd be like, what are we drinking today? And I would just, I got this. It's from blah, blah, blah. And then at some point we're like, well, wait a second. This is a segment. This has worked its way into the show. This is a segment.
Well, he's kind of being modest though, because from the beginning he had all these weird ideas about catchphrases and all this stuff, and he's like, "We're going to do a beer of the week." And I'm like, that makes 0 sense. We're going to drink beer and talk about murder. This makes 0 sense, and somehow it worked.
Right.
So
Yeah, no, it's kind of genius. I mean, I think, Lance, how many times did we say we wish we could have done something like that on Missing Maura Murray? We just kind of felt like we had to take it more seriously than anything we've ever taken anything in our lives. And I think that was one of the reasons Crawlspace, we started Crawlspace. It gives us a little more freedom to be ourselves, and we can drink and talk about that a little bit, have a little more fun.
You guys should start a beer fund.
I think the beer fund.
We're giving you give you permission. Take our idea and run with it. Your audience will love it.
I like it.
We could start a beer. I remember one of the comments that came up when we were first doing the video portion, and someone was like giving me crap for slamming Miller Lite Tall Boys, and so now I drink it out of a mug. Because I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be seen to be inappropriate.
Yeah, we kind of had that rule. We gave ourselves that rule, but I think tonight it doesn't matter because these guys, we're broing down tonight. It's a bro down.
What's really cool about what you guys are talking about is, not to bring like seriousness back into the conversation, and we can deviate from that.
What a Debbie Downer.
A little bit, but what you're talking about is really cool marketing ideas for an industry that's so new, and you think, well, how can we talk, like we're gonna do a beer of the week and we're gonna talk about murder and crime? We can't do that. Well, yeah, you can, because we're just making the rules.
Yeah, and I think some of it too is that you can't take yourself too serious, because especially when you're diving into these crimes every week, especially the stuff that involves children. And look, it's depressing. It can be very depressing and stressful on your life. So some of the stuff you can't take yourself too serious.
And people shouldn't expect you to take yourself as serious as the cases that you're covering, or else you'll go crazy. You'll stop doing it. You'll go nuts.
The thing is, as long as you don't disrespect the victims, which makes no sense to do that anyway, you should be fine. We have put ourselves on a bit of a fine line that we kind of, tap dance on week after week. But I think our personalities, we're just regular good guys. Like, so it's pretty easy to not. I've listened to some other shows, and I don't know what they're trying to do. I get the product that they're trying to put out, and I'm not going to name any shows but I'll say some things that I've heard done. I heard somebody covered a case where there were some people that had been shot in the head, and for whatever reason, the producer or the guy giving the interview decided that he was going to play music during the interview, like a sound bed underneath the interview. But he was choosing songs that were of a violent nature, that was like, bullet in the head and let the bodies hit the floor and things, just in the most disgusting, poorest of taste you could think of. And I've heard another podcast where they were talking about, we covered the Delphi murders recently, and this was one that covered it. I don't even know that they were covering the Delphi murders. They were just talking about things in the news at the time. And it was the type of show where you would have a host or two and just multiple guests week after week, and it's random guest people, which I think is a poor platform to start with, because the audience needs to identify with people, and if you keep a rotating group of people coming in there, it becomes a circus at some point, and they can't follow along. They can't identify with you or the people they're listening to. But he says to one of the guests, he says, well, 2 girls died on your birthday. How do you feel about that? And it's just like, what is that? First of all, it wasn't going to be funny anyway. So where were you going with this? I don't understand. And like I said, it can be a fine line, but there's no reason to disgrace people that have already had the worst of luck and experienced the worst of things that you can think of in your, thank God we've not had to experience those things. Thank God we're just sitting here talking about it. Thank God we have the privilege of keeping these cold cases in the ears of people and in the minds of the public, so that maybe someday somebody gets some kind of justice or some kind of closure for something something horrible that happened to their family.
Yeah, that's well said.
So before we get into a little bit of the Maura Murray case, I just want to talk to you guys about Crime Con. We saw you there. We were hanging out a little bit, and we had an absolute blast. Did you guys have fun?
Well, I had a great time. Well, I had a great time the whole time, but Nick could only come for the Friday because he had a family vacation that was already planned like a year in advance. So it got a little lonely for me. I mean, because it's like everybody's there with their partner in crime, and I was surrounded the whole time by people, which was cool. But it would have been nice to share that experience with my co-host.
Yeah, I go to this place in Florida every year, the same week of June, and there's like 30 or 40 of us there. We go every year, and it was one of those things. I booked it and then found out I didn't think we'd get invited to CrimeCon. I didn't even know what CrimeCon was. And then one day we get somebody emails or calls or something and says, "You're invited to this thing." I was like, "Wow, that sounds great." Can't be there. I was very happy that I was able to make it for the Friday portion. There were so many cool people to meet. It was a lot of fun being in the same row. I liked how they did that with all the podcasters to, just so we could put faces to names and voices. And it was, what I loved about it was, first of all, meeting everybody. Everybody had such nice things to say and interesting things to say as well. But at the same time, even though I was there with the captain and we had our little table, looking down podcaster row, it almost felt like all the podcasters were on one team. We were all one giant football team for one day. You know what I mean? Like we were there, and
it was a very weak, nerdy football team.
It was one of those, kind of.
It was a football team. It was a football team. Yeah.
But no, CrimeCon, I will make a point to that vacation will not be booked until after CrimeCon is scheduled for next year.
Well, it's already scheduled.
It's going to be in May this year, so it will not conflict with your weekend.
Well, not until I find out about when it's scheduled.
And I'm not entirely sure, but I heard that Nashville might be a pretty good drinking and music city, and we're talking right now and putting it out there to at CrimeCon 2018. Maybe we should do some late night drinking show, some live late night drinking show between us and you guys, and we hang out with with some listeners, get some beers to sponsor us, and we just see how far we can take it.
Yes, let's do a live show for sure. As long as you guys host it, we're good. I got a question for you guys, if that's okay. So you try to be your authentic self, or you try as much as you can. But inevitably, man, I can't talk today. This is awful.
It's the rum.
But you end up always kind of becoming your character on the show. Do you find that?
Totally. I feel like we just discussed this too. We tried to have an episode of Crawlspace where Tim and I were like, we just want to loosen up and talk and just show the listeners our personality and where we're from. And I don't think it was like a half hour into it before we got down a road that was so disturbing. Tim couldn't read this thing because it had to do with kids and it was disturbing him. And it was like, God damn it. We can't even just like lightheartedly discuss something with the microphone in front of us without thinking that we have to have some important message that we need to deliver.
It was like episode 3 of Missing Maura Murray all over again, where I got afraid of the security picture of Maura.
Oh, yeah. The one in the hallway, and it was like, you start seeing that, and you're like,
I can't even look at this, guys.
I can't even look at that. But then again, it's like you do kind of become a character, but it sort of is what you are. It sort of is what you are, and as much as we want to kick back and joke around and show people what what we truly are, what our personalities are, the subject matter, I mean, like you were saying, the subject matter is a little tough to do that with.
It's not like you're a fake persona. It's really the character that the captain's talking about and that you're talking about. It's truly a character of yourself. It's like a compartment of yourself that shows up when that microphone is there, when you're in the garage, when you guys are in studio, when you're working. It becomes, this is the portion of me that shows up and does this show. It's nothing fake, but that's what it is.
Right, but it's only a percentage of you, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but no, it's a good point, and we could easily cut some of the things that seem embarrassing to us. We're kind of going through this a little bit with our documentary editing for the Missing Maura Murray documentary that we're working on. Some things that we say are downright embarrassing, and it's like, well, we could just cut them, or we can just leave them in because it's the truth, and we said that shit. And it's like, well, we made a vow a long time ago to just tell the truth. And, we can cut some of the embarrassing moments of the show, like the parts where I'm histrionic or the part where Lance, drones on and on. But
Very few and far between.
There's
Very
a
few
lot.
and far between.
Yeah.
And I'll continue to say how few and far between they are in very
As he rambles on about few
very
and far
eloquent.
between. It was kind of few
like if you
and far
had
between.
if you
is
had
what I'm
few
saying.
over here and far between was like in London.
Between
Yeah.
over there.
how
yeah.
many steps would it take you to get to between?
Right, but I do it in a very eloquent way, very much the way Kennedy used to speak.
Oh, so-
I am to Kennedy's speech the way Tim's hair is to Kennedy's hair.
So together we almost make one full Kennedy.
Right, and we're not even talking about
Okay.
John F.
Yeah.
We're
No.
talking about probably one of the
Right.
Kennedy, the old MTV VJ.
Not back and to the left.
We're
talking about.
actually talking about the VJ, Kennedy. yeah. Who are you guys talking about?
Right. The VJ Kennedy. Yeah.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
But long story long, I tend to not ramble.
Lance, as you know, finding the right talent is the key to a successful business.
Right. The right talent is what you need if you're talking about whether you can grow your business. If you're hiring, you want to grow your business. You're at that point.
Right, but it's not easy.
It's not easy. People hate it. Going through resumes.
Right, and finding that talent and deciding on that talent. How do you know, is this person right for this position?
Listen to this. Those are the resumes that I'm looking at right now for people who simply want to help us produce this show. Please tell me, Tim, is there something I can do about this?
With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to 100 plus job sites with just one click. Then, their powerful technology efficiently matches the right people to your job better than anyone else.
This is why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter, they don't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them. I think it's something like, what's the percentage? Like 80% of jobs, am I accurate on this?
That's it.
Posted on ZipRecruiter, get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours, or some would say 1 day.
No juggling emails or calls to your office. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard.
And you know how bad I am at juggling. And I've seen you try to juggle that the cat, the watermelon, and the chainsaw, and that did not work out well.
That did not end well.
For the watermelon.
Yeah. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results.
And as of right now, our listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for, you don't get this every day, for free. That's right, free. Just go to ziprecruiter.com/crawlspace.
That's ziprecruiter.com/crawlspace. One more time to try it for free, go to ziprecruiter.com/crawlspace. Let's hear about your guys' experience with James Renner and covering the Maura Murray case. Because you guys did, was it 3 episodes or 2 episodes of it?
I think we did 2.
Well, we did 3 episodes of the Maura Murray case, 2 with just me and the captain, and 1 with James Renner. But what gets confusing is we've had Renner on the show 3 times for different
4
cases.
times.
4 times?
I think 4 times.
Might have been 4.
Maybe 3. I don't know.
So he talked about some touchy things with you guys, and at that point it hadn't really been put out there. And of course it was if you're familiar with these episodes that you guys produced and the history of the Maura Murray case, you'll know where we're going with this. But it was the allegations against Billy at his workplace. And so
Right.
tell us a little bit about how that whole situation went down from your guys' end.
Well, I'll just give my perspective first. So it was cool because we reached out to him, and he is about 2.5 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
And we, nobody knew who we were at the time. And he was like, yeah, I'll meet you. So I do some work at a studio. So we actually rented out that space to make him feel a little more comfortable. So he shows up and he gets out of his car. And the first thing I think he sees is me, like, oh, what the heck did I get myself into? This guy's big. Then he goes in the studio, and it's top of the line studio. I mean, all the remixes of Led Zeppelin were done on that board. Eric Clapton recorded on that board. We recorded some stuff with 21 Pilots at that studio. So it's a top of the line studio. So right when he walks in, he's like pretty comfortable, and it's just funny because he looks right at Nick and he goes, "Didn't you follow me out into a parking lot one time?"
Which is true.
Which is true.
Which is true.
Is that a true story?
Yeah, so I here's how big of a true crime dork I am. All right, so I, well before we did the show, and I still continue to do it to this day, but if there's a true crime author somewhere in the state of Ohio that's giving a presentation about a case, if I have the day off, I will drive 2 or 3 hours to go sit at the presentation, and I will, if I have some questions or some input, I will make a point to let you know what I think or ask for some more details.
Or stalk you in the parking lot.
They had kind of a very short, he was at this thing up in, I can't remember where it was, but I probably drove about an hour or so. And they had a very short Q&A afterwards where he sat off to the side and you had to approach him face to face. Well, there was a ton of old people there. So I try to be a nice dude, and I let all the older people go first. Well, they cut off the line by the time I get up to the table. So he leaves. I wanted to talk to him about Amy Mahalovic. And that's how I know James Renner that's how I got into him years ago. And so I start asking him questions as he's like putting away his stuff. And then next thing I know, we're walking down towards the door, and I'm still asking him questions. Then we're in the parking lot, and he's like trying not to detect to me where his car is, like he doesn't want, he's like, and at some point he's like, I have to go. I have to drive quite a ways. And I was like, yeah, I do too. I should probably leave. But he's a super great guy. And we were very happy to have him on the show. And you guys know this. We're not telling you anything that you don't know.
Well, and the weird thing about it too is that for some reason in the true crime world, not all the time, but a big percentage of the time, if you don't agree with somebody, then that person is the enemy. Right. And I think that, to me, is silly because, I'm going to learn more about a case from somebody I don't agree with than somebody I do agree with every point. But as far as your question goes, I was interested to hear what he was going to talk about. And the other interesting thing was he told us before we started recording, I'm going to explain this information to you, but we had to stagger our release because some of this information was in the book, and obviously to protect himself, that's what authors have to do. So we were hearing this information for the first time.
He did the interview with us about 2 months before the book came out.
2 months before the book came out.
Yeah, so we had to kind of sit quietly about what we heard, during that interview.
But, I mean, those are accusations, and if he feels strongly enough to accuse him of that, he must have evidence to back that up.
He said Billy didn't deny the allegations. That's really all I know about it.
And he also said that there were the accusers talked to him. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's weird because your guys' I told you your last episode with him on Missing Charlie Murphy. You guys kind of went after him, and I think we would have been more confrontational with him, but we invited this guy down, and Nick and Renner actually talked a lot about Amy Mahalovic and a couple other cases beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the last one we talked to him about, and we were trying to be respectful. Like we brought him in to hear his viewpoints, and we weren't like trying to ambush him and say, hey, come in here and come to our turf and let's have an argument. I just wanted to hear his thoughts.
Well, and the thing too, this is where you got to give him credit, because he's made a lot of accusations regarding the death of Amy Mihalovic. But at the same time, he's made those accusations, but he's gone up on people's doorsteps at the middle of the night and knocked on the door with only armed with a pen and paper and said, you know what? I think you did this. You got any answers for me? That's something. I mean, that's doing the legwork. Anybody can sit in a garage and say, you know what? This guy did this and he's a terrible person and I got no proof and I've never even seen him face to face.
Right.
James Renner has done the leg work. He's chased the boogeyman. Maybe he's never caught the guy, but you know what I mean? I give him credit for that.
And the people that don't like him about his opinions on that particular case, you got to remember that with the Amy case, he was going after justice for a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you not like somebody that does that? I think the Maura Murray case is different. I think it's a case that sucks you in. And I think, oddly, it becomes a case that you want the answers for yourself more than you want the answers for Maura. Because if she did go missing on her own, then why the heck are we talking about this? She doesn't want to be found. But it's a case that sucked me in because it's a thought experiment. That's all it is. Give me a theory. Now let me go down a rabbit hole. Give me another theory. Let me go down a rabbit hole. And that's why your guys' show was so great. It was presenting a different rabbit hole every week. And then I just get lost in that one rabbit hole. I don't agree with James Renner on a lot of things. And the best, my favorite part of the whole thing is, look, I talked to a college coach, a listener of ours. He teaches college soccer. And when we covered that case, he just emailed me and said, here's my number if you want to call me. Called him, and he was trying to explain to me that you have to understand what Haas, that's his name, right?
Mm-hmm.
What he did was so beyond out of bounds. It's not a common thing. Not only could he lose his job, he could lose his degree. And not only could he, he's going for a not undergraduate, but a graduate degree. They could actually suspend his undergraduate degree. And then they can sue him for all the money that he has taken. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that the university could sue him and win. Not only that, but they can actually try to charge him with as some kind of sex offender, even though she would be of age, because it was a student-teacher relationship, and they could go after him with that. So if anybody has a motive, that's the person that you want to have your motive. And so when the whole stuff came up about the cabin and being linked to the school, the one thing I thought was funny, is I talked to James, and James Renner said, well, he was always my number one suspect. It's like, no, he wasn't. Billy's always been your number one suspect. And I think James Renner is a great storyteller. And I think sometimes he sticks to his thought process too closely, and sometimes he jumps off of it too quickly.
Yeah, I have a quick question for you about the Haas situation. What is it that he could have gotten fired for? What is the thing that you're talking about?
If he had a sexual relationship with a student, that is forbidden.
Because he was an assistant track coach, right?
Right.
Right, but he's getting paid to be the track coach, and he's getting paid for his graduate degree. Like, they're helping him with housing, they're helping him with scholarship and tuition, but you work for the university. And so this is not coming from me.
This information about him having an affair with Maura, where did we hear this?
From him.
Well, from Renner, technically.
Exactly.
We didn't hear it from...
He's never come out and
Right.
said anything
He's never
other
come
than
out
what
and said
Renner
that.
has said.
Right, but here's a couple issues. If what he said to Renner is true, and look, I don't think Renner's a liar. I think he's a great author. I think he's a great dude. I don't think he's a liar. And he brought up all this stuff even when he wasn't trying to point the finger
True.
at Haas. He was bringing up this stuff a long time ago. He was just sweeping it under the rug because he didn't understand the seriousness of it. And when you have a university coach, contact me and say, look, I am telling you that if that stuff happened, you have to understand how serious of an offense that was. And I think this guy has been teaching or coaching at a university for, I don't know, 15 years or something. And he said, in my time of coaching, this has never happened. There's never even been rumors of it. Because even if there's rumors of that, maybe you're sleeping with a student athlete or whatever, that's bad for business. And I think look, when you also he moved across country too.
To accept a job with a very good company.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. But I'm just saying, I'm just saying that coming from a coach that's saying, hey, look, this is a serious accusation. And if this is true, then this guy definitely had a motive. And then also, it gives us a reason why she's on the road she's on.
Absolutely. All of that aside, and I agree with you on James, and I think because we have a relationship with James and we work well with him, and I feel like we're able to call him out on certain things, I feel like he takes his narrative a little too far. For example, the Haas situation, the police officer who Maura called and arrived at the scene for the first accident, also an unnamed source who claimed that there were orgies with the track team. These are things that he puts out there, and he says she left a party, got into her dad's car, got into an accident, and he lets you put that together and say she was drunk in an accident. And then he says, when I called the cop, he hung up on me. He hung up on James because he just didn't have anything else to say. And as far as he knows, James is a reporter, and he didn't charge this girl with DWI because she wasn't drunk. But James will put it out there and say, an unnamed source said that there were orgies at the track with the track team, and she left this party, and she got into an accident, and it was 2:30. Put it together. I mean, she was drunk. So it's all of these things, and I don't know what happened with Haas, and I don't know, what the ramifications with that would be. But I certainly, I don't think someone can go so psychotic so fast and say, wow, we had sex, and if I get caught, then I get fired. I have to owe money. Damn, I got to kill you. Like there's other ways to go about doing it. This guy has never. Well, he doesn't have a police record. He's never had any history.
Yeah, but the cabin.
No, yeah. But the cabin, man. No. Look, I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying I think from the word go, right when I first heard that, to me, it felt like a situation that, especially people like Renner, they're sweeping under the rug. And it's a serious, what he is stating that Haas said, that's serious. And that should be looked into. I mean, just with his job and everything, that should have been looked into.
In all fairness, though, on our show, we didn't say that Haas did it, but on our show, we said, you know what, if Maura was pregnant and if she was in fact heading to the cabin,
right,
then Haas would be our prime suspect with a big circle around it.
Yeah, because who says that she has to be pregnant by Billy?
Right.
What if she's pregnant with Haas? Right. Haas's baby. So that's just
those were if we had those two questions answered, then we would, for us in the garage, we would have our prime suspect. But it's something that the captain and I talk about week after week. Every case we cover, there's usually one or two questions. If you just had the answer to that, and it has nothing to. I think it would point you in the direction of who's responsible for what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's totally a chance that Haas has absolutely nothing to do with where Maura Murray ended up and has no idea. And maybe, as James Renner wrote in his book, she did say to him that I want to run away to Mexico. but obviously didn't. Like we've heard, I can't remember
Right.
where I'm trying to recall this from, but there was a story recently where someone said that, and it was Brianna Maitland said, we talked to her friend, and she said she was gonna go run away to Florida, and obviously that it wasn't what happened, because her friend that she said it with was still there when Brianna Maitland went missing. So yeah, these weird things like that, like I want to run away to Mexico, they do happen, and that's not the end result. But I want to get back to something that Lance said about Renner. Do you think Renner is, like you mentioned, he put it out there and he kind of leaves it open-ended. Do you think he does that because that's where he is in his reporting, or do you think he does that because he has an agenda that he's pushing?
Well, I don't want, again, I respect the guy, and he's a sweetheart of a guy. To me, though, he's an author, and he's trying to create a story. Whether that's fiction or nonfiction, he's trying to create a story.
And what the captain means by that is,
Well, don't tell him what.
I know what you mean by that. We're not saying that he's fabricating things to create a story. He has to take what information he can gather, an assumption. Maybe sometimes it's an assumption. I don't know, but he has to take what he can gather and put it together in story form.
Yeah, but no. What I meant is, I think sometimes, if I say it this way, it's a better story. And I think he's just naturally that's the way his brain works. This is a better story. Just like when he said to me, well, yeah, he was always one of my number one suspects. Yep. No, you brushed him under the rug months ago. And now that there's actual evidence that points that maybe we should look into this guy more. And then again, he said, well, you know what I think is funny is that he talked to me before, and now he won't return my emails. Like, that's a big deal. Like, look, he might just not want to talk to you. Somebody not wanting to talk to you that does not point to their innocence or guilt, right, ever. Sometimes they just don't want to talk to you.
I have a lot of emails that I have not responded to.
A lot of from me.
Well, and here's the thing. We all, we live in the true crime documentary golden age right now, where, there's a new one coming out every month that you're supposed to not miss.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these, Making a Murderer, I can't think of a bazillion of them offhand. Oh, The Keepers. But you will see this time and time again where they're like, what, the producers, the directors have, much like what you guys are saying maybe James Renner has, where they have a theory, they have a position that they've taken when they decide to do this documentary. And then they say, you know what? We reached out to the psychiatrist that used to treat this guy, and he said or she said, well, I'm not returning your calls. I will not comment on that.
Right.
And then it paints the picture for the listener or the viewer that, oh, they're hiding something. And, and I've told the captain 100 times, and he said it to me too, when we've watched documentaries on cases we've covered, and they're like, the doctor wouldn't talk. The psychiatrist wouldn't say anything. The whole medical building said no comment. And we've gone, you know what? If I were at that level too, mm-hmm, and I was in that situation, I would have no comment. I absolutely would have no comment. Why would I go on your show or your documentary, and then later you can cut the tape and you can skew it however you want to skew it, depending, even if I said the right thing 100% of the time, you can cut it and make it look like I'm hiding something, or that I've done something wrong, or I'm covering for people that have done wrong things.
Yeah, but that being said, anybody that doesn't talk to you guys for your documentary is hiding something.
Oh, they're totally hiding
so
something.
You're the one. The one exception.
You guys, you got too much charm. If they don't talk to you, they're soulless and they're guilty.
I wish it was that simple, to tell you the truth. I wish it was that black and white.
I have had so much sex with old women just to get information. It sickens me right now to think about it, but I still kind of want to have more sex with old women.
You obviously love true crime podcasts just like us. Let us tell you about a new podcast we love called Serial Killers. Serial Killers takes a psychological approach to provide a rare glimpse into the mind, methods, and madness of the most notorious serial killers in an effort to better understand their psychological profile. With real audio from the serial killers themselves and the help of voice actors, they delve deep into their lives and stories.
Each episode aims to answer how someone can commit such depraved and unjustifiable acts by taking an investigative approach into the psyche of serial killers. The hosts analyze evidence, they share real confessions, and for the most recent cases, you will hear real audio from the serial killers themselves.
Their team of skilled true crime researchers brings to light little-known facts about each killer as well as to analyze their story. So check out episodes covering Ted Bundy, the Zodiac Killer, Charles Manson now.
So visit iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast directory and search for Serial Killers. Again, that's Serial Killers. Or you could visit parcast.com/serial and you can listen now.
What about the announcement that and I don't want to make this the Renner Hour, but since we're on the topic, something that got announced last week was this Johnny Depp's production company is taking True Crime Addict, James Renner's book, and turning it into a fictionalized version of his book for television.
Well, I think they're buying the rights. I don't know if they've actually started to adapt it. It's
there's writing going on.
Well, in all fairness, I mean, Johnny Depp bought the rights to a famous jazz bass player named his story Jaco Pastorius, and there's been rumors for 20 years that Johnny Depp is making an adaptation. It's one of those cases where it's like, I don't know, I'll watch it because I'm obsessed with that case, but it's going to be so Hollywood that it's going to be more Hollywood than James Renner's book. So,
yeah, well, I mean, we'll see about what the final look is on it, whether it's kind of gritty or whether it's Hollywood. But a lot of people came out and they were like, I can't believe this, that son of a bitch, and I saw it and I was like, awesome, because it's about time that this is just another development in this whole crowdsourcing information, this whole true crime, what we do. And James Renner has, what could be a deal with Johnny Depp's production company, which is going to put it in front of millions and millions of people's faces. And he's a fascinating character who got himself involved in a fascinating case. And the more eyes, the better. And people will draw their own conclusions about him based on that material. And he's the one that has agreed to have that happen. So whatever happens will happen.
Okay, what about, let me throw a counterpoint. They're not using Maura Murray's name, and it's set in upstate New York. They're not even using James Renner's real name. So what do you say to the people who say, oh, that James Renner, he was always about the money, and he was never in this to find Maura, and this show isn't helping find Maura at all. It's just helping him professionally.
Well, look, I think the people, again, like I said, the people that hate him, they haven't met him. He's a nice guy. He drove over 5 hours to meet with guys he never met before. And is that to sell books? Maybe, but he doesn't know our show. He doesn't know how many listeners we have.
He didn't know if he was showing up to be beat up by a couple guys he's never met before, you know.
And at the end of the day, he's an author, and I respect him as a person. He's an intelligent person, so we should listen to his ideas. That doesn't mean you have to accept them, but you need to listen to them. And then if you want to talk about one of the best true crime books maybe ever written, True Crime Addict. And everybody that reads it, even people that I know, even listeners of mine that have said, you how dare you put him on your show? And then 3 weeks later, they're like, that book was good. And at the end of the day, he's an author. And does he have a responsibility for the truth? That's on him, and that's on his character, But, does it make a better book? I don't know. It's a good book. It's an amazing book.
When you look at the things that people do to enhance their careers, just in general, what he's doing really isn't so completely horrible. The people make him out to be just like this like maniac, like ego maniac, and people do much. What he's ultimately doing is putting a lot more eyes on this case.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Sorry, I've been kind of sitting waiting to give an answer on this one. The thing here is, the question is, Johnny Depp has purchased the rights or working on making this an adaptation of some kind of story into a movie, right? Did James Renner, is he selling out? James Renner used Maura Murray's name in his book. He used James Renner's name in his book. That's his product, was his book. He's not hiding the truth from you. Johnny Depp, if whoever's taking it and adapting it to a movie, changing the names, that's fine and that's good because you got to put it on the screen. He has no obligation after what they take his product and do with it. He has an obligation to himself as a career and his family to put food on the table and pay the bills. Mm-hmm. The thing here is James Renner writes just as good nonfiction as he does fiction books. His fiction books are incredible. He can write stories that do not have anything to do with real life that are amazing. And then furthermore, Johnny Depp is a great actor. He's a brilliant guy, but he's also been a guy that's done very well because of true crime. Donnie Brasco, the Jack the Ripper. He's been in the Whitey Bulger. Yeah. He's done a lot of true crime movies that have done well for him, and he's done well in those movies. So it's a win-win for everybody. If anybody's got a problem with it, I mean, come on. Then
they would sell the story themselves.
I think that's one of those ones where I would say check yourself because you know what? Go 110% on something for as long as you can, and then when you're done with it, sell it to everybody that's willing to buy it.
Right. And then people, and at that point, and people are saying, I am sick of people profiting. I'm sick of looking at him profiting off of the case. It's like profiting? Really? Like the time that someone puts into that and you actually do the math, that's not profiting at all. Like that's just living. Like you said, he's got to put food on his family. Like he's got to pay his bills. He's got to do we all have to do that.
So you're saying like if he got a job during the time that he spent writing the blog and writing the book, then he could have made potentially more money than he made making the book, and he wouldn't have raised awareness for this cold case that may have become folklore by now if he hadn't done that. Is that what did I take that a little too far?
Here's a weird question for you, though, because the funny thing about the Maura Murray community is they just jumped on him and hated him. Again, like I said, go back to his earlier work. All the stuff with Amy, that's a little kid he was trying to find justice for. And not popular. He's going to write a book about her, and by the way, he's not going to make any money off of it. He's doing that for justice for a little kid. And for whatever reason, he got sucked into this case like we all did. And then for some reason, he's truthful about his opinions. And then everybody jumps down his throat like he's some like horrible person. So, some of his thoughts and opinions might be wrong. But what's weird to me is they question his character. It's like, that's the craziest thing to me. It's like when we cover a case, Casey Anthony or one of these, or like West Memphis 3, or we've never done Adnan Syed's case yet because you can't win.
Who's that?
And it's like Adnan Syed, but it's like you can't cover those cases because if you're honest with your opinion on some of those, people jump down your throat and then they start like attacking your character. And it's like, we might not agree on what happened in this case, but why are you attacking my character? And I don't understand why they do that with James, especially a guy that they never met.
Well, here's the other thing, too. and we'll have to move on after this one. But the thing here is, Renner he's a little garage. If you want to hate somebody, hate the big box company, because Johnny Depp and whoever produces this movie, they've taken Maura Murray's name out of the show. They've taken it out of the story. They're going to make millions. Renner's made thousands. You know, that's what it is.
Renner is listed as an executive producer.
Well, he should change his mind. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But you see what I think you guys know what I'm saying.
But
Absolutely.
Here's what happens all the time, though. You know, in Hollywood is, you know, if they just looked at, you know, we always see these movies based on a true story. That's what it will be, based on a true story. And he lived that life. So the book, True Crime Addict, is more about what he was doing that in that time than it is just about the case or Maura Murray. So that is his story, and he has the right to tell his story.
Right, and it also reflects the culture of the time with that genre. It reflects how one person, if it's James Renner or if it's me or Tim or you guys, how we get caught up in certain things and how those effects lead to something else, which leads to something else, etc.
But hopefully it inspires more young authors and journalists to go, hey, you know what?
Literally went into my throat and my brain and took the words. You just pulled them out in such a. It was like you just dipped them in butter and pulled them out of my throat.
Because look, it's inspiring. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of his stuff with Maura Murray, but what's inspiring is a guy that devoted so much of his time and energy to try to find answers. Whether those answers are just for himself or for the greater good, who cares?
The movie for True Crime Garage is totally for sale as long as George Clooney plays me and Carrot Top plays the captain.
Nice. We have a running joke that when True Crime Addict becomes a TV show, for some reason I just know that Rick Moranis is playing me and Tay Diggs is playing Tim. I just know that's how it's going to happen.
I'm not going to throw out any theories here for relating to Maura, but I will throw one thing in there that I always think about regarding her disappearance and her accident, or the vehicle, wrecking the vehicle that night and then disappearing. And the question of, did she take off of her own free will? Did she leave with somebody she knew? Was there a tandem car? Did she get into another car? Did she walk away, run away, whatever? One conversation I had with the detective back when we were covering the Brian Schaefer case was, I asked him, I said, do you have, this is a retired detective, I said, do you have any outstanding missing this is somebody that did missing persons. He said, I have one. And he said, I have one that has bothered me from the day that I got it because I thought it was easily, I would find this guy. I said, well, why would you find him? He said, because he was last spotted driving his car. Well, a car is a very easy thing to trace. It has a VIN number. It might still have a license plate on it. It's, unless you paint it, it's always going to be that color. And he said, it's what has bothered me so much about this case is we never found his car. He said, for 15 years, every couple of months, I would run it through the system to see if there was a traffic ticket on that car, or if it was reported stolen, or if it was reported in an accident. Nothing on this car forever. And it boggled his mind. And now the thing is, if you want to think about somebody, I don't know that she would be smart enough to plan this out.
Mm-hmm.
But if a car is a problem, and the detective that I spoke to obviously sees that the car is the solution to finding the person, well, she walked away from that problem that she had, right? And I'm not throwing any theories out there. I'm not saying that is my theory. I'm just saying it's something that I always go back to because the detective I spoke with knew nothing about this Maura Murray case. I was just picking his brain from his experience from all the cases he's covered.
Yeah, what was interesting was he actually talked to the detective, and then I got to talk to the detective again. And his first question to me was, why is this missing person case so popular? And I was like, and I didn't have much of a reason to give him other than it just kind of takes on, once you get sucked in, you're just sucked in forever. I mean, to this day, I mean, whenever you guys' documentary comes out, let me know. I want to go to the showing. I'll drive wherever.
Oh, awesome. You'll be hearing about it.
And so I think the interesting thing about Maura Murray's case is, for us, and I'm not for sure. I mean, we might have gave some opinions, but I think they were loose. It's a case for us where we're like, we don't really know, and I think that's okay answer to give sometimes.
Yeah,
because we just don't know.
Oh, it's absolutely okay. Not only is it okay, it's the most responsible answer that you can give if you've gone as deep as we've gone in it. You cannot go this far and say, no, this is how it happened, because you don't know. Right. There's no way you can know. And everyone's like, well, what do you think happened? It's like, I know what I think I know leading up to it, and what I think I know.
But that's a weird thing about doing a true crime show. Is like, a lot of people that are tuning in, we'll get a lot of requests. But the requests that we're getting are cases that are already big, that already people talked about, but you become their friends, and they want to know their friends' opinions on certain things. And I think we actually have a really nice group of friends, group of listeners, that they're willing to, because there's two of us, so we disagree sometimes, and they're willing to let us slide on some of our opinions. And not always do we do, like you said, do the responsible thing by not giving an opinion. Sometimes we say we don't know, and then other times we just go, my gut is telling me. Yeah. With all the evidence and every which way it's pointing, my gut is telling me this.
Isn't that crazy? Like, you actually develop a gut sense about certain things with this topic.
And it's a feeling that you can't really explain.
Yeah, and then when you dive into these stories and you hear people's statements and things they've said, there's people that you tend to trust and don't trust, yet you've never met any of them. And that's where your gut comes in, I guess.
Yep. A handful of examples that we're not going to get into, but yeah, when you see a certain way someone speaks or writes and they're reaching out to you, okay, this seems normal, right. Yeah. And this does not seem normal. This seems like there's some ulterior motive
just through
here.
A picture. I mean, we're doing the Madeleine McCann. I didn't say it right, did I?
Madeleine McCann.
I said it wrong for 2 hours, and I know I said it wrong. I physically just can't say it correctly.
Your brain can't make that happen.
Well, no, I was drinking on Saturday. I have a buddy that's a private investigator, so I met with him and drank with him and went over the show. And, so sometimes I got my buddies that they work on cases, and I call them and say, hey, this is the case we're doing next. And they go, okay, cool, I'll meet you Thursday. I'll go to the bar, and we'll sit there for 3-4 hours talking about the case, because now I get to hear, either a professional's take on things, or maybe it's just a professional web sleuth, but somebody that does their research. And the whole time we're talking on Saturday, I couldn't say it correctly. And I was like, oh, great. That means for 2 hours I'm going to say it wrong, and the people are on Twitter and everything were making fun of me. But like with that case, it's weird because the father has a blog that he posts like sighting pictures, and most of the sighting pictures I don't get any feeling. But there's one where she's in a convenience store, and for some reason everything in my body tells me that's that girl, and I can't explain it. It's just so.
Yeah, that's a crazy case. I was listening to those episodes today, and it's a wild case. I don't know. I don't know what I have to think. The only thing that I kind of really zeroed in on as something that I think I can kind of understand is when they were talking about the dad, and I believe the mom too, having like acting too dramatically. Putting on what they thought was this performance. But I think that's so common in these situations. And I think, like, we've heard that about Fred Murray. We've even, to some extent, I think Bruce Maitland even kind of confirmed that that's what it feels like. Like, it almost feels like you're watching yourself, go through these motions because you can't fucking believe what is happening in your world right
Well,
there.
What's really interesting to me is, when she was caught crying on the balcony, and then they reported that she was crying too much. and that she was acting. And then when they hired a PR person to help them, because the police will tell you, hey, if you get on TV and you're crying too much and you're showing too much emotion, it doesn't help the situation at all. So you have to sit in a room and learn how to speak about this girl that went missing. She's a 3-year-old girl, and you're her mother. And if you had nothing to do with it, could you imagine the pain that she would have to be going through by just trying to stay cold? And then she stays cold, and then everybody goes, see, she has no emotion.
Yeah, you're crying too much. What's the right amount of crying?
Oh, it's a certain kind of hell. There's no doubt
Yeah,
about
and
that.
to me, it's like, it's as simple as like, watch the video footage of them as parents, and when she was around them, and they have video footage of that, and it's like every normal parent. They seem to be good parents and good people.
Let us know what cases you guys have coming up.
Okay, so if somebody's never checked out True Crime Garage before, we got a lot of praise covering a case we called The Boys on the Tracks. We did that about a
4-parter.
It was a 4-parter, yeah. So if you like binge listening, check out The Boys on the Tracks. That's one of those cases. It's a case from Arkansas back from the 80s. 2 boys are run over by a train, but then they learn they were already dead before they were put on the tracks. Now, this is one of those cases where you hear it and you're like, why am I only hearing about this now? Why isn't this like one of the most famous true crime cases ever? And it's a strange one because people that have lived in Arkansas since the 80s, they know about it, and they've been screaming about it since then. We were very happy to cover it. We covered the Casey Anthony, which is a little more popular, well, a lot more popular. Coming up on the show, we look forward to covering a case called The Monster of Florence. It's basically Italy's version of the Zodiac Killer. So that's one that we're really looking forward to. And we're also going to dive into the Texas killing fields. And that will be, so we're looking to do The Monster of Florence in July, and then we will do the Texas killing fields in August.